Everything is working, even the stream. Got to re-enter my freaking key, even though there's like no changes. So I just had to, input it again. But as you can see, I am locked out here and I have to type it individually. But I figured, nah, that's not important. What it is important is just me reading what on the stream while other people can listen and listen to me clearly. I fixed that when this finishes. I gotta go downstairs and check if I need to clean anything for the kitchen. It's the rest of the errands. But yeah, this happens while streaming, so oh wills. Oh wills or rails. Now, anywho, the whole time I'm going to read the fix of the car and societies in its entirety. Let's see how that goes. Oh boy. Now, let me make sure I got everything, just to be sure. Besides that, I'd look into the stream again, see if there's any other issues related to Twitch with my account connecting and live. Anywho, effects of the car on societies. Since the start of the 20th century, the role of the car has become highly important through controversial. Car has become highly important, though controversial. Okay, though, not through. It is used throughout the world and has become the most popular mode of transport in the more developing countries. The effect of the car on society are not as visible, however, they are significant. The development of the car built upon the transport sector first started by railways. This has introduced sweeping changes in employment patterns, social interactions, infrastructure, and the distribution of goods. Despite the positive effects on access to remote places and mobility, comfort provided by the automobile, allowing people to geographically increase their social and economic interactions, the negative effects of the car on everyday life are not negligible. Although the introduction of the mass-produced car represented a revolution in industry and convenience, creating job demand and tax revenue, the high motorization rates also brought severe consequences to the society and to the environment. The modern negative consequences of heavy automotive use include the use of non-renewable fuels and dramatic non-renewable fuels as dramatic increase in the rate of accidental death, the disconnection of local community and decrease of local economy, the rise in obesity and cardiovascular diseases, the emission of air and noise pollution, the emission of greenhouse gases, generation of urban sprawl and traffic, segregation of pedestrians and other active mobility means of transport, decrease in the railway network, urban decay, and the cost per unit distance on which the car paradigm is based. Now, you have all these contents from 1 through 12. 10 through 12 are just resources. See also references and external links. Starting from number 1 is history, 2 access to convenience, 3 economic changes, which is employment, automotive industry, consumption habits, and growth. 4 is traffic, 5 is culture changes. With all of this, even has cinema, interesting. Now 6 is safety and traffic collisions, 7 is crime, 8 is external and internal costs, public, private, and 9 is car-free streets. Well, further ado, history. In the early 20th century, cars entered mass production. The United States produced 45,000 cars in 1907, but 28 years later, in 1935, that had increased nearly 90-fold to 3,971,000. The increase in production required a large new workforce. In 1913, 13,623 people worked for the Ford Motor Company. For the Ford Motor Company, and by 1915 that had increased to 18,028. Bradford DeLong, author of the Roaring Twenties, noted that, the Roaring, I'm not saying my R's right. Author of the Roaring 20s noted that many more lined up outside the Ford factory for chances to work at what appeared to them to be, and for those who did not mind the pace of the assembly line much, was an incredible boondoggle of a job. Boondoggle. A boondoggle is a project that considered a waste of both time and money, yet is often continued due to extraneous policy or political motivations. So that, wow, what a silly term that people used. Well, boondoggle seems a lit word in its time. There was a surge in the need for workers as big, new high technology companies such as Ford employment increased greatly. When the motor age arrived in Western countries at the beginning of the 20th century, many conservative intellectuals opposed the increase in motor vehicles on the road. Those increases removed space for pedestrians, made walking more dangerous, and brought a tremendous increase in pedestrian deaths caused by car collisions. W.S. Gilbert, the famous British librettist, wrote, British librettists. A libretto is the text used or intended for an extended musical work such as an opera, operetta, maschi, oratorio, cantata, or musical. So librettists, the two T's, yeah, that's we don't say that much in American English. But anyway, wrote to the Times on 3rd June 1903. Okay. Let me see if I could put an accent. bit of a posh accent. Sir, I am delighted with the suggestion made by your spirited correspondent, Sir Ralph Payne Galway, that all pedestrians shall be legally empowered to discourage shotguns. The size of the shotgun to be humanely restricted to number 8 or number 9, at all motorists who may appear to them to be driven to a common danger. Not only would this provide a speedy and effectively punishment for the erring motorist, but it would also supply the dwellers on popular high roads with comfortable increase of income. Quote, motor shooting for a single gun would appeal strongly to the sporting instincts of the true Breton. Breton. Breton, and would provide ample compensation to the proprietors of illegible roadside properties for the intolerable annoyance caused by the enemies of mankind. Yeah, it's good. Out of nowhere, needs more practice, but I think I got the spirit. The, the enemies of mankind needs work. 10 years later, Alfred Goldley wrote a more elaborate protest, The Motorbus, a poem which cleverly combined a lesson in Latin grammar with an expression of distaste for the new form of motor transport. So distaste, it's just D-I-S, then taste. Let's look at here. Looks like a monster. Sacrifices to the modern Moloch, a 1922 cartoon published in the New York Times, criticizing the apparent acceptance of society of increasing automobile-relatable fatalities. Yeah, you can see the things. This is not high res, which sucks because when this was taken, yeah, it's about taking a while. But and I got the gist of it. There's writing here, referring to fields, auto fatalities, sacrifices to the modern Moloch by James. Now, anyhow, let's go on to second, which is access and convenience. Convenience store in the rest area serving New Jersey Turnpike users. The turnpike being just here, there's really not much parking, or people actually able to walk, so more for driving. Okay. So access and convenience worldwide, the car has allowed easier access to remote places. However, average journey times to regularly visit places have increased in large cities as a result of widespread car adoption and urban sprawl, as well as the decommission. Okay, so let's go with combination. Commission. So commissioning. So this is commission. Then there's an in. So decommissioning. The D and the ing is confusing me because we used to say it separately, different words. As well as the decommissioning of all tram systems. This is due to traffic congestion, and the increased distances between home and work brought about by urban sprawl. Examples of car access issues in underdeveloped countries are, for example, the paving of Mexican Federal Highway 1 through Baja California, completing the connection of Cabo San Lucas to California, to Madagascar, another example. Well, 30% of the population does not have access to reliable all-weather roads, and in China, 184 towns and 54,000 villages have no motor road or roads at all. Certain developments in retail are partially due to car use, such as supermarket growth, drive-through fast food purchasing, and gasoline station grocery shopping as well. There's traffic injection. So you have all of these. Now let's go to economic changes, employment and consumption and habits. The development of the car had contributed to changes in employment distribution, shopping patterns, and social interactions. Oh no. Hydrate. I'm really realizing the more when I'm speaking, my lips that started chapping. Not my mouth. Or lip balm. I wonder how greatly. Ooh, this is a Comp USA. Aw. I remember that store. I shopped it a freaking lot. Now, at least there's a Micro Center, which is equivalent to Comp USA stuff. Where it's a specialized electronics store with good service. But, yeah. Well, let's go back to here. The development of the car has contributed to changes in the employment distribution, shopping patterns, social interactions, manufacturing priorities, and city planning. Increasing use of cars has reduced the roles of walking, horses, and railroads. In addition to money for roadway construction, car use was also encouraged in many places through new zoning laws that required any new business to construct a certain amount of parking based on the size and type of facility. The effect was to create many free parking spaces and businesses placed further back from the road. In aggregate, this led to less dense settlements and made a careless lifestyle increasingly unattractive. Yeah, that's definitely true. Retail parks attract revenue away from high streets and town centers or centuries. A town century or center. Many new shopping centers and suburbs did not install sidewalks, making pedestrian access dangerous. This had the effect of encouraging people to drive, even for short trips that might have been walkable, thus increasing and solidifying American auto dependency. As a result of this change, employment opportunities for people who were not wealthy enough to own a car and for people who could not drive due to age or physical disabilities became severely limited. That is true, especially with what I read last time under automobile dependency or car dependency. That is a sad fact. And yeah, let me actually refer to this. So yeah, the fact that sidewalks are not installed, that is a big thing about why people would not walk. Because sidewalks are very important. I mean, it actually does save lives because I know for the U.S., when it comes to going to town where alcohol can be a very huge issue, that there's a lot of drunk driving fatalities relating to pedestrians, and especially if there's a freaking urban site that has a lot of highway systems and people have to walk nearby them. Yeah, it's sad, and it shows why it's dangerous. Why it is very similarly limited, because hey, people don't want to walk when there's not a sidewalk, because most likely they have to worry about getting hit by a car. Yeah, that's the trouble thing about cars. Now, let's go to the next one. Economic growth. In countries with major car manufacturers, such as USA or Germany, a certain degree of car dependency might be positive for the economy at a macroeconomic level, since it demands automobile production, therefore resulting also in job demand and tax revenue. These economic conditions were particularly valid during the 1920s when the number of automobiles worldwide and a substantial annual average increase, but also during the post World War II economic expansion. Notwithstanding, all one word, the growing effects provided by the automobile on the economy of some countries, several other auto dependent countries deprived from automobile industry and oil resources have to allocate substantial economic assets to satisfy its mobility policies, affecting then their commercial balance. This situation is broadly valid in the majority of the European countries, since, disregarding some few exceptions such as Norway, Europe is largely dependent on imports for its fossil fuels. Furthermore, just few European countries, such as Germany or France, have car manufacturers productive enough to satisfy their country's internal demands for cars. All these factors related to high motorization rates affect, therefore, the economic growth in the majority of the European countries. So Germany and France. Yeah, I didn't know that. Motorization rate versus economic growth. In European countries whose population is greater than 1 million inhabitants. Source, Eurostat. Yeah, it's very fascinating. That this is taking porch more with automobiles rather than just cars, residential cars, or cars that people would just use to drive. There is a huge importance of it. I mean, hell, the biggest way to decrease car dependency is having more buses, more automobiles in the road, but buses, in order to have more people not take up so much space by private vehicles. Oh yeah. Oh shoot. Yes. My screen sort of froze a bit. My mouse sort of froze, so I'm like, oh man, is my computer's gonna crash? Okay. Let me read this. Employment in the automobile industry. As of 2009, the U.S. motor vehicle manufacturing industry employed 880,000 workers, or approximately 6.5% of the U.S. manufacturing workforce. Now on to traffic. Cycling steadily became more important in Europe over the first half of the 20th century, but it dropped off dramatically in the United States between 1900 and 1910. Automobiles became the dominant means of transportation. Over the 1920s, bicycles gradually became considered children's toys, and by 1940, most bicycles in the United States were made for children. From the early 20th century until after World War II, the roadster constituted most adult bicycle. The roadster. Oh, so that's a roadster bicycle. It's a type of utility bicycle once common worldwide and still common in Asia, Africa, Latin America. Okay, so yeah. So when we're facing, this would be Asia. If I go look it backwards. So Asia, Africa, Latin America, and some parts of Europe. During the past few decades, traditionally typed. Oh wait, Europe. You have Asia, you have Europe, Africa, Latin America, and North America, then Antarctica. Gotcha. In some parts of Europe, gotcha. So it's a roadster. Okay, so the roadster constituted most adult bicycles sold in the United Kingdom and in many parts of the British Empire. for many years after the advent of the motorcycle and automobile. They remained a primary means of adult transport. Post-war, in several places, both high and low income, bicycles has retained or regained this position. In Denmark, cycling policies were adopted as a direct consequence of the 1973 oil crisis, whereas bike advocacy in the Netherlands started in earnest with a campaign against traffic deaths called Stop Child Murder. Yeah, quote, quote. Today, both countries have high modal shares of cycling despite high car ownership rates. So that's when they started. Makes perfect sense. Man. So, I actually talked to a friend's father about this crisis because he actually does remember this as a big thing. Because I only heard it vaguely. People don't mention it. Especially when it came to when it was around like the 2000s and the debate on oil and resources for countries like United States. And that event showcases a lot of the American public. So just American, just because that's what I knew of people facing their life related to that issue. Yeah. Cultural changes. Model split. Prior to the appearance of the automobile, horses, walking, and since the 19th century, streetcars were the major modes of transportation within cities. Horses require a large amount of care and were therefore kept in public facilities that were usually far from residences. The wealthy could afford to keep horses for private use, hence the term carriage trade referred to elite patronage. Horse manure left on the streets also created a sanitation problem. Yep, the good old manure. I'm not gonna. I have a feeling that it's just gonna show some dunk. I checked it after the stream, and distance. The motorcycle made regular medium distance travel more convenient and affordable, and after World War I, the automobile too, especially in areas without railways. Rail. So, wow. Wow. Rail. Yeah, my R's keep on sounding like W's right now. Well, anywho, let me actually finish this up. Especially in areas without railways, because cars did not require rest, were faster than horse-drawn conveniences. I'm actually going to search up this. But anywho, let me finish this up. And soon had a lower total cost of ownership. More people were routinely able to travel farther than in earlier times. The construction of highways in the 1950s continued this. Some experts suggest that many of these changes began during the early golden age of the bicycle from 1880 to 1915. So that's when bicycles were mainly used. But I did wonder why bicycles seem to be out of fashion, and later on in the late 20th century, so around the late 1900s, bicycles started coming up again, but different varieties. Yeah, that's something I want to look at, because I actually do like bicycles. Maybe I want to own one day.
Conveyance.
So conveyance. Convenience? Conveyance. Yeah, it does sound very close to convenience, but it's conveyance. So the golden age of bicycle. Whoa. That's something I do want to read up further next time. preferably soon. Anywho, let me hydrate. And then after that, I'll return next time and talk more about this. Till then, so long.